a sight for my soul. There goes a sight, there goes a sight.
Hello and welcome back to another video, everyone. In today's video, I'm cooking up some Cuban-inspired shrimp, black beans, and pan-fried corn cakes. And what's cool about this recipe is it was made with ingredients completely from my pantry, my freezer, or from leftover groceries like 2.5 to 3 weeks ago. So I travel a lot for work. I'm usually gone Monday through Thursday, and then this weekend I was gone for the weekend visiting some friends. So, you know, when I got back on Sunday, I was hungry, but I didn't have any fresh groceries. So instead of going out and buying some and having to fly out the next day anyway, I was like, let's see what I have on hand, let's see what I can come up with. And so this is where this recipe came from. And as you can tell based on the kind of title of this video, instead of focusing on the cooking method, I'm gonna kind of switch it and focus a little bit more on, you know, what pantry staples do I usually use, how to come up with recipes when you may not have every ingredient that you want, and most importantly, you know, how to lower the grocery bill, how to get ingredients that you can use across multiple dishes as opposed to something that has a very specific use and may drive up the grocery bill. So without further ado, let's get cooking.
All right, so to start off, I want to walk through quickly how I kind of choose ingredients. So first thing I'm looking for is, you know, what protein do I have? Do I have anything in the freezer? Then next is what kind of vegetables or grains do I have? And then 3, I turn to my aromatics and my spice cabinet to kind of pick and shape how the taste of the meal is going to work. So for my protein, I actually had shrimp from a shrimp bisque I made like in January of last year. And all I did was thaw that off. And then for my grains, I had some leftover cornmeal that's been in my pantry for probably a year at least. So I decided to make just a little cornmeal mix with an egg. So eggs last, 2, 3, 4 weeks in the fridge. Great stable ingredient to have on hand. And then baking powder. That's always something I keep in my pantry to get that rise and the leavening agent. And then vinegar to give that baking powder or something to react with. And then I just threw in a little bit of water. So normally this would be more ideal if I had milk, but, since it's leftovers, I went with water instead. And then threw in some sugar, which is another pantry staple that I have. And then finally come in with that cornmeal. And all I'm doing is getting it to a consistency that I like. So I was going to make standard cornbread, and then I thought, why don't I make little corn cakes on the skillet? So that's kind of what I decided to do. And then for some additional spice, I decided to cut up some chilies and throw those in as well. So I bought these chilies probably almost a month ago now. And chilies or jalapenos, habaneros is something I always keep in my fridge. Just like I stated, they keep for a long time, and they're really useful at a variety of cuisines and dishes. And now I'm just turning to some more aromatics to cut up. So onions are a big pantry staple of mine, used in millions of dishes, and they keep for at least 3 to 4 weeks in the pantry. And then same with garlic, it'll also keep around 3 to 4 weeks. And what I decided to do was make some garlic shrimp. So I threw in 3 garlic cloves and let them saute with the onions in some olive oil. And all I'm doing is letting that brown nicely. And then once that is nice and browned and aromatic, I'm going to come in with just half a can of some diced tomatoes. And this is one of my key pantry staples to use. Can be used in tons of different dishes and cuisines. It's really cheap. I would really suggest everyone have a couple cans of tomatoes in their pantry. And then all I'm doing is letting that cook down for a little bit. And then we're going to be ready to throw in our shrimp. So I just let the shrimp thaw, got rid of that big ice block from 9 months in the freezer. And I'm just going to let these go for probably around 4 to 5 minutes until they're cooked through. It doesn't take too long. And then now that our shrimp is cooked through, I'm just going to put that off the heat, and we're good to go. And then on that back pan, I have some black beans that I made, and we're going to start walking through that process. So for the black beans, I just took a quarter of that onion that I diced up and threw it in with some chilies, and then also brought in just a little bit of salt and pepper to help those aromatics sweat. And then all I'm going to do once those are kind of browned up a little bit is just come in with a can of black beans. So this is another pantry staple similar to the can of tomatoes that I think everyone should always have on hand. 2 to 3 cans. It's a great, cheap protein source. It doesn't take anything to cook it, really. You don't have to worry about dry beans. A meal can come together really quickly. You can make refried beans. You can make beans and rice. There's just a lot of uses for it. And all I did for these was mix it with my aromatics and then threw in a bay leaf or 2 that I have in my spice cabinet, which is another way to impart more flavor into this recipe. And then all I did there at the end was add just a little bit of water to kind of thin out the consistency. And I'm just going to cover this pan for 5 to 6 minutes so we can let all those flavors get comfortable with each other. And then we should have a great finished product. And now that we pretty much have our black beans and shrimp done, I'm just going to fry up that cornmeal mixture we made earlier. And then all I did here was oil a pan and bring it up to medium-high heat. And I'm just going to fry a little bit of that cornmeal mixture. So I'm trying to get a read if my temperature is high enough. And this is great to use for things like pancakes, any batter-based things, frying. It's a great way to just test how the larger portions will react. And then what I'm going to do is actually put these into some little mason jar ring molds. So all I'm doing is spraying those so they don't stick. And then I'm just going to drop in our cornmeal mixture. And then it should be a nice circular ring, just for a nice aesthetic. And then I'm just going to let these fry until they're browned on one side and then flip them. Just a few minutes each, doesn't take too long. And then you can see we've got a nice brown golden crust on these when we flip them over. Really flavorful, an easy way to do, some pan-fried corn cakes. And then we can see after a few minutes on the other side, we are ready. And then we can assemble our meal. And all I'm going to do to assemble this is throw that corn cake down and then top it with some of those black beans where we used the aromatics. We used some salt and pepper and some bay leaves to add some more depth of flavor in there. And then throwing on our shrimp. So a lot of that flavor was provided through the onions and garlic that we browned in the olive oil, and using those tomatoes that I had in my pantry. And just topping it with that sauce you see over top. You see those big, nice bulbs of garlic. Really big pockets and explosions of flavor. So as always, I'm going to run through the calories, nutrition, price. So 476 calories, 33 grams of protein, 50 grams of carbs, 16 grams of fat. And then the price per serving is $2.43. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you learned something about how to use leftover ingredients, what kind of pantry staples you can use. And ultimately, all of these tips and tricks really help you save on your grocery bill. Instead of having to run out and get a specific ingredient for a specific recipe, you can kind of come up with your own, substitute where you need to, and make better leftovers. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. Hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. And I will catch you in the next one.